Tonight, the story of one lone hospital accountant from Whitefish, Montana, James Alderson, who blew the whistle on the hospital giant Columbia HCA for allegedly cooking their books. That company's stunning rise is already a business world legend. From just 2 Texas hospitals, Columbia catapulted in a few short years into the world's biggest hospital chain. It made quick millions for Wall Street and revolutionized the hospital industry. And then suddenly the party ended. Indifference followed. The company's top management was fired. Hospitals were sold off. And now Columbia HCA and its former corporate cousin Quorum Health face fines and restitution of possibly $1 billion for allegedly cheating Medicare. This is the accountant, Jim Alderson, who blew the whistle on what may become the biggest Medicare fraud case ever. His attorney is Stephen Marr, a former federal prosecutor in San Francisco.
In a simple sentence, what's this case about?
This case is about good old-fashioned fraud, lying for money. The largest healthcare providers in the country lied to the government and got reimbursement they weren't entitled to out of the Medicare program.
This is not a case of hospitals overbilling patients for surgery or for medicine. It's about hospitals overbilling the U.S. government for the overall cost of caring for Medicare patients, from building costs to nursing care. And 3 months ago, that's exactly what the Justice Department accused Columbia HCA and Quorum of doing, looting the Medicare program for more than a decade by padding their expenses on what are known as Medicare cost reports.
This was not a case of honest disagreements about gray areas. This is a case about systematic and persistent false claims submitted to the government year after year over the course of hundreds of hospitals.
And now we come to that lone accountant, James Alderson, in a remote Montana town at a tiny hospital where he decided to take on the nation's health care giants.
I knew I was up against some big odds.
Jim, did you really think that the huge Justice Department in Washington, D.C., with all the important stuff it has to attend to, would listen to one man with no lawyer driving a 9-year-old car from Whitefish, Montana, claiming that the United States hospital industry was corrupt at its core?
I believed it because I had the documentation.
Alderson's unlikely saga began in Whitefish, where he and his wife Connie quietly raised their 2 children. It was home for 17 years.
It was a sleepy little resort town on a lake when we moved there.
It was a paradise.
In 1990, Alderson had been chief financial officer at North Valley Hospital in Whitefish for 6 years when the hospital decided to retain Quorum Health, a huge hospital management company, to take charge. Alderson was at the hospital helping prepare what is called a Medicare cost report, which explains to federal auditors how the hospital has spent Medicare's money, when one of Quorum's managers
came into the room and made a little bit of small talk. And then he asked me if we do just one cost report.
Alderson told him he prepared only one. And he says Quorum's manager then told him,
Quorum always does 2 reports. We do one that's called an aggressive report, and that's the one we send into the government.
He used the word aggressive?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And then we do a reserve report.
The reserve report is more conservative, with fewer expenses claimed. That report is held in reserve at the hospital, so accountants there know how much money they would have to return to Medicare if they got caught using the higher figures.
They wanted you to sign off on 2 sets of books, in effect.
As it turned out, yeah.
You just were not about to do it.
That's correct.
And you lost your job.
I did.
We lost more than a job. We lost a lifestyle. We basically lost our home. We've had other houses, but I think if home is truly where your heart is, that's still in Whitefish for all of us.
He was right. He should have said no. And he paid the price.
Nicholas Bordeaux is a former Medicare auditor who knows the Aldersons.
How did you meet Jim Alderson?
I audited as an auditor Jim Alderson's hospital for several years.
Did you have any trouble with his Medicare cost reports?
None. It was usually considered a waste of time to go to that hospital.
Because?
Because we never found anything.
He was a good accountant.
He was an excellent accountant.
Excellence aside, Alderson was out of work. And with only one hospital in Whitefish, he was forced to go to work for less money at a hospital 200 miles away.
So you had to leave Whitefish for a job in a smaller hospital, smaller town, uprooted from the town where you raised your kids. Tough stuff.
We were in the expensive years, too. We had a daughter who had just started college at the University of Montana. Our son is entering high school.
But Jim Alderson kept wondering, kept stewing about those two sets of books. In the course of suing Quorum for firing him, he learned that other Quorum hospitals also seemed to be cooking their books. And later he discovered that some hospitals not affiliated with Quorum might be doing it too.
Be things like interest expense that they knew was non-allowable. An entire floor of a hospital was vacant, and yet they would show that as being used for patient care. Things like community relations and advertising that Medicare says we don't pay for.
And besides, the chances of a hospital getting a full audit are small to begin with.
Fewer than 15% ever get audited. If, up until now, you got caught, what usually happened was you paid the money back without interest, only. So,
In other words, well, you caught me, so here's the money, but no interest.
right. So,
You're joking.
that's absolutely how it works.